Let's talk about conceptualizing the research idea. This is supposed to help you formulate your working topic. By working topic, we mean a topic that you just have in mind that you're working on. We call it working topic because it can be modified over time, several times before your final submission. You may find that the first topic you put out for your research work might not necessarily be the exact topic that was submitted at the end of the day. So how do you get to formulate a good working topic? First, choose the right research questions. You'd want to identify the problem you really want to solve at first. Be very specific. What exactly do you want to investigate? So your research question should be unique and it must contribute to existing field, okay? Your research question should be bordered on or an already existing field. It should be unique to you. What we mean by unique to you means that it should be something that stems from your interest. It's not something somebody said you should work on and then you just felt like working on. You'd want to be motivated throughout the process of writing your research paper. And I'm sure you won't want to lose interest easily. For that not to happen, it is best for you to focus on a research topic that is in your field and that is of serious interest to you. Avoid research questions that are easy, that they seem easy, but they are uninteresting. And avoid questions that are really interesting, but they are impractical to work on. So for example, questions that are easy but uninteresting could be why do babies cry? So that's a question, right? So you want to carry out an investigation into factors that make babies cry. It's a simple research, right? I mean, you should go online, you see a lot of work on it, things that makes baby cry, maybe discomfort, hunger, things like that. So it's quite an easy research question, but it's not interesting. It doesn't really appeal to the scholarly audience. How about questions that are interesting but are impractical to work on? So you can have something like, how many times do babies cry in the womb? That's an interesting question to find out. I mean, but if you're not in the field where you're able to examine what goes on with the fetus in the womb, then that's something really impractical to work on. It's an interesting question, but very impractical. So how do you come up with some really good or effective working topic? Here's a practical idea I advise starters to begin with. So make a list. Already you have a problem you want to solve, right? Make a list of maybe 3 to 4 keywords about the problem you want to solve. 3 to 4 keywords. Make a list of it. Then once you've identified about 3 to 4 keywords of your research interest, just go to scholar.google.com, that's Google Scholar, and then put in the keywords. Just write the keywords. Maybe you can separate them with a comma. Put in the keywords. You'll see some research works around that keyword that will come up. By looking at the topics, looking at what other people have worked on, it will give you an idea. An idea will spark, like something will spark, like, okay, I think I can do something like this, or this work looks interesting, let me see what it's about. And then you might see something that really sounds like what you want to work on. When you go through it, you'll find out that there are other things, maybe there are limitations of that work that they didn't cover, that you'd like to cover. That way, you can use that limitation, still based on that existing work that you found the limitation from. You just make a research topic out of the limitation of that work. So let's say you're working or your field is international development, and you're interested in examining the perception and realities or the situation of the poor in your country. Let's say Bangladesh, for example. You're interested in examining the perception or the situation or the realities of the poor in Bangladesh. You want to see how what their livelihood looks like, the risks they face every day of their lives, okay? And then you go online and you find a similar study. It doesn't mean because there's a similar study you should run away from that research. No. Now recall that this work was done, let's say the work was done in, even if it was done in Bangladesh and you also still live in Bangladesh, for example, you just open that work, read through that work. Already you had an interest in mind, you had something that was of interest to you before you found that work. While you're reading the work, an idea will strike you. Something will be like, wow, okay, maybe the work maybe the author or the researcher focused on or carried out the study at a particular point in time, for example. So that's a cross-sectional study. Maybe he just investigated or he interviewed or researched several poor people in Bangladesh at a point in time. At a particular point in time, that's a cross-sectional study. He just gathered data once and then reported the finding. You can look at that work and say, what if at that point in time there was really something, there was some kind of factor that, you know, made so many people poor at that point in time? Maybe there was a global recession or something. So the findings of that study would be limited because it was just done once. But what if you decide to do it for several years, like it's something you want to do for your PhD, and so you decide to undertake what we'll call a longitudinal study. So you want to see the perception and realities of the poor in Bangladesh, but this time it's a longitudinal study. So just bringing in the idea that it's a longitudinal study, you want to focus, you want to carry out this study for a period of time, or you want to see the result, what the result has been or would be like for a range of time or a number of years. That finding is going to be more reliable than the cross-sectional study that was carried out at a particular point in time. So I hope this helps you to understand what we mean by coming up with unique ideas for your work. It may not be ideas that are out of this world, but ideas that add to existing knowledge